Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good evening to Professor Dr. Hairuddin bin Muhammad Ali and fellow teachers. Today, our Group 1, will start our second round presentation under the Management Process and Leadership topic, which is Communicating. Chapter 8 from the book Management from an Islamic Perspective by Khalid Ahmad. Now, I will start our group presentation by introducing our group members. The group leader, Mr. Muhammad Azwan bin Muslim. Next, Madam Mardiya Hayati binti Abdul Rahman, Madam Mislina binti Ahmad, Madam Nurul Akma binti Baharuddin, and lastly, Mr. Hafshamnur bin Abdul Hamid. Group 1 will cover Chapter 8, Communicating, based on these contents. We will start with the introduction, communicating, followed by the communication process. Next, factors affecting communication. Then, communication from the Islamic perspective. After that, principles of communication in Islam. We will end our presentation with the summary. The objectives of our presentation today are to explain and explore the communication process, to explain and understand the factors affecting communication, to explain and understand the communication from the Islamic perspective, and lastly, to explore and understand the principles of communication in Islam. As the first presenter of Group 1 today, I am Hafshamnur bin Abdul Hamid. Will briefly introduce to you the topic of our discussion today, communicating. We are all familiar with the term communication. So, what do we understand from this term communication? Well, communication is the transfer and exchange of information as well as the understanding of one person by another through meaningful symbols. It is an approach to exchanging and sharing of ideas, attitudes, values, opinions, and facts. Communication is a process that involves both a sender who begins the process and a receiver who completes the communication link. Within an organization, managers engage in a communication process to carry out their four functions, which are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. And to play the roles, communication is thus an essential function of leadership. Failure in effective communication rapidly leads to leadership and organizational crisis. Conscious communication is planned and the communicator is aware of the content of the message, while unconscious communication, on the other hand, is not planned and the communicator is not aware of its content. Communication exists in verbal and non-verbal forms. Verbal or oral or written communication utilizes words as symbols. Non-verbal communication conveys ideas without the use of words. The content of any communication is not received in the manner in which it is transmitted. Instead, it is perceived. Perception is the manner in which one is organizing and interpreting incoming information. Perception is selective and influenced by the environment. It could be location, motion, or size of the objects being perceived. Communication channels may be personal static, such as a letter, impersonal static, such as flyers, direct interaction, such as face-to-face discussion, and indirect interaction, such as a telephone conversation. Communication establishes relationships and makes the process of organizing by a manager possible. Every message has a purpose or objective. The sender intends consciously or unconsciously to accomplish something by communicating. In an organizational context, messages often have a definite objective, that is, to motivate, to inform, to teach, to persuade, to entertain, or inspire the employees. This definite purpose is in fact one of the principal differences between casual conversation and managerial communication in an organization. So effective communication in an organization centers on well-defined objectives that support the organizational mission and goals. Through the communications, supervisors strive at achieving understanding among parties. That's all from me. I will pass the baton to Sister Miss Lina. Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Hafsham. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to our respected lecturer, Professor Dr. Khairuddin bin Muhammad Ali, and all of my friends. I am Miss Lina binti Ahmad. The communication process refers to a series of actions or steps taken in order to successfully communicate. The communication is the process information as well as its understanding from one person to another. The process consists of 5 basic elements. First, the sender encodes. Second, channel of communication. Third, the receiver decodes. Fourth, verbal communication. And last, nonverbal communication. Now, we go through to the explanation of communication process elements. The communication process has several components that enable the transmission of a message. Here are the various parts. The first part is the sender encodes. This is the person that is delivering a message to a recipient. The sender initiates the communication process. The term message implies the information that the sender wants to transmit, and the term medium implies the means of communication. As a sender, the supervisor should define the purpose of the message, that is, to construct each message with the receiver in mind, select the best form of medium, time each transmission thoughtfully, and seek feedback. The second part is channel of communication. This is the transmission or method of delivering the message. The channel is the path for a message to follow from the sender to the receiver. The figure indicates supervisors use channel to send their message to employees, while employees use channel to send their feedback to their supervisors. Horizon channels are used in communicating across departmental lines with suppliers or with customers. Then, the third element of communication process is the receiver decodes. This is the interpretation of the message. Decoding is performed by the receiver. The receiver is the person or the group to whom the communication effort is extended. Feedback ensures that mutual understanding between sender and receiver has taken place in a communication event. It implies the transfer of information from the receiver back to the sender. The receiver decodes or clarifies the meaning of the message. The fourth element is verbal communication. Verbal communication is the use of words to convey a message. Some forms of verbal communication are written and oral communication. Interoffice memos are utilized for recording or of informal inquiries or replies. Letters are formal in tone and addressed to an individual. Reports are more impersonal and more formal in nature than letters. They are utilized to convey information, analyze, and recommendation about matters. Written communication addressed to groups will be via bulletin board notice, poster, exhibits, displays, audio, and visual aids. And the last part is nonverbal communication. Nonverbal message will be image, action, and behaviors applied in a communication. Example of image will be photograph, film, chat, tables, graph, and video. Nonverbal behaviors will be action, body language, and active listening. So, how does the communication process work? In order to successfully communicate, it's important to understand how the process works. Here are the 6 steps in the communication process. Number 1, the sender develops an idea to be sent. Number 2, the sender encodes the message. Number 3, the sender selects the channel of communication that will be used. Number 4, the message travels over the channel of communication. Number 5, the message is received by the receiver. Number 6, the receiver decodes the message and provides feedback.
Thank you, Sister Miss Lina. Hi, I'm Nurul Akmal binti Baharudin. Will present under the topic Factor Affecting Communication. All are aware of the importance of communication in a relationship as well as management too. According to Khalid Ahmad 2011, there are 10 factors need to attention of a manager to visualize any possible effect on communication. There are the power of words, the application of appropriate language, precise communication, pleasant communication, humor in communication, personality and social intercourse, degradation of information, difference in understanding, perceptions and behaviors, communication technology, and barriers to effective communication. Now, let's look at the first factor, the power of words. The terminology used restricts and determines the limits of the human thought process. For Muslims, it is preferable to adhere to the terminology of the Quran in communicating with Muslims. New terminologies should be developed and understood in the same context. Use of the foreign terminology, either directly or in translation, would lead to confusion in touch to the initiated. Second factor is the application in appropriate language. The language used in any communication varies by aspects such as intimacy, professional circle, age group, and gender. When communicating, one should ensure applying a language appropriate to the communication situation. It is not appropriate to apply hypocrisies or pretension to communicate with anybody in the same manner, regardless of their special background and peculiarities. Next is precise communication. Precision in communication indicates that the mind of the individual is active and dynamic. Precision further indicates that the communicator has defined object for the communication. To use more words than necessary to convey a defined objective does not serve any purpose. We can always improve the precision and enhance its effectiveness through training and experience. Pleasant communication. Communication must be pleasant in order to well absorbed and appreciated. Good and positive words have more effect. A good disposition, friendly greeting, a smile, and shaking hands are all factors that assist well in communication process. The voice should be pleasant in that it should convey warmth and friendliness. Next, we'll look how humor be a factor affecting communication. A sense of humor may serve well in communication, but too much inappropriate humor indicates lack of seriousness and perceived as negative. Never laugh at anyone, no matter its justification. Hence, a sense of humor can save a person from difficult situation. It can disarm an angry person. The sixth factor is personality and social intercourse. A communication style reflects one's basic personality. However, one should avoid developing a funny personality, rather one should be genuine and be oneself. Communication is the basis of social intercourse and the overall functioning of a society. Speak good words or keep quiet and avoid bad words. One should use polite words, even towards people who do wrong, and always apply a personal touch. Now we look at degradation of information quality. Content of communication is degraded as it is passed from one person to another due to increase in noise components and by that cause of decrease in the information content. The noise here refers to factors that destroy the intended message. Look at difference in understanding, perception, and behaviors. A reservoir of information may benefit more than a transmitter. The receiver of a message may understand it, but at a deeper level than might have been intended and thus benefit from it more than passenger. Behavior is the result of perception, which it turns depends on the selection and interpretation of information. The same kind of information can elicit different behaviors among different individuals depending on the variation in their perceptions. Background knowledge, attitudes, and environmental matters affect the manner in which the recipient perceives and interprets information. Ninth is communication technology. Information overload is a problem and an issue of the day, and one must guard against it by maintaining clearly set objectives and by knowing information technology required for the intended purpose. Last but not least is barriers to effective communication. There are 10 common barriers to effective communication, such as prejudgment of matters prior to a communication event, individuals' preferences between communicator, distractions, and emotional resistance to being at the receiving end, time constraints, poor listening habit, poor speech, bad timing, and unsuitable circumstances. Other causes for failure in communication will be multiple meaning of words, information overload, verbosity, value judgment, and filtering. Making prejudgment is one other the most serious cause of failure in communication. Reconfirmation of information to able reaching the right conclusions is an essential aspect of Islamic communication. That's all from me. Some detail in this regard will continue by Sister Mardiha. Welcome, sis.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. I am Mardia Hayati Abdurrahman and I will continue to the topic of communication from the Islamic perspective. The Islamic concept of interpersonal communication in an organizational setting is an effort that has to be made by managers. Islam attaches much significance to human communication. The religion declares that communication is a special gift which Allah has bestowed upon man after his creation. The Quran states in Surah Ar-Rahman, the most gracious Allah, it is He taught me Quran, He has created man, He has taught him speech. In Islam, man is not free to utilize his communication ability as he please. He is accountable before Allah with regards to the manner in which he has applied during his lifetime. Therefore, man has to be very careful, serious and responsible in his use of communication skills. The Quran warns in Surah Al-Isra, every act of hearing or seeing or of feeling in the heart will be inquired into on the day of reckoning. Since the manner in which man deals with communication also affects other people, it is such a crucial matter that it can make or mar the internal life of a person. Prophet Muhammad SAW said, truly a man utters words to which he attached no importance, and by them he falls into the fire of hell. And truly a man utters words to which he attached no importance, and by them Allah raised him into paradise. There are many factors to be considered in discussing the issue of communication from an Islamic perspective. Some of these factors are discussed in accordingly. First, man has been given speech. The ability to communicate with one another is a precious gift God gave humans. Second, variation in languages. Through the same codes of communication, God will also communicate His presence and His message to people through special envoys in order to guide them and lead them to safety until the end of their journey of life. Third, speculation in communication is condemned. Their role as communication mediators concerned with delivering precise message from Allah to their nations required exceptional communication skill. They had to be very eloquent in language and knowledgeable in local culture in order to deliver exceptional orations. Fourth, the excellence of good word. Prophet Muhammad SAW said, "He who truly believes in Allah and the last day should speak well or keep silent." And it was clear by giving a principle of communication that a person, if he wants to speak, should speak good or else he should remain silent. Fifth, a good word even to those who approach is bad. When you stick to this rule, you will avoid backbiting, abusing, blaming, arguing, etc., avoiding a lot of sin as a result. Therefore, at the time of difficult situation where you don't know what to say, simply stay silent. And sixth, condemnation of the bad word. They should be well-mannered to inspire listeners, uplift examples of their message, skill, and using emotional intelligence to choose their timing, content, and adjust their emotions according to each situation. Let's continue to number 7, insincere communication. We communicate with people on a daily basis, and what's better than learning some important types of etiquette that could improve our daily interactions. Next, excellent in mentioning the name of Allah and reciting the Quran. Prophet Muhammad SAW was chosen for a monumental task to deliver God's message to all mankind until the end of time. So, not only was he commanded to inform his own people in his geographical environment during his lifetime, but his mission stretched to include communicating with every human in every corner of the world from the day he was chosen as a prophet to the very last day on this earth. Next, avoiding confusing others. The world needs more people who are in touch with humanity and with the universe, whose focus includes the well-being of others, of the environment, of the future, whose perception of our world as one unit makes them care for humanity as one nation and avoiding any confusion. And lastly, using non-verbal communication. Being the exceptional communicators he was, the Prophet Muhammad paid special attention to sending clear and consistent non-verbal messages all the time, even while he was completely silent. He knew that most of his tradition will be transmitted verbally, so he spoke concisely and clearly. He repeated every important idea 3 times. He used very strong vocal and gesture cues consistent with his words to enhance people's memorization of what he said to be able to repeat it to others. As a conclusion, every act of Islam revolves around communication. Communication plays a very important role in everyone's life as it acts as a source of information, helps people socialize, and alter individuals' attitude, and much more. Thank you.
I am Muhammad Azwan bin Muslim. I will describe about principles of communication in Islam. First, we will look at principle of communication in Islam. Islam emphasizes the importance of effective communication in human life. It further and specifically identifies and recommends a detailed set of divine principles for its effectiveness. The following are among the systematic principles based on Quran and Sunnah that need to be practiced and avoid aspects to be practiced in communication. Number 1, kindliness and affection toward others. Number 2, politeness in communication. Number 3, speak the truth and be straightforward. Number 4, clarity and brevity. Number 5, repeat important points. 6, two-way communication. 7, investigate the rumors. 8, mutual trust and confidence. 9. Be wise in communication. And 10. Greet and thank people. While the things to be avoided are: number 1, backbiting. Number 2, avoid suspicion and spying. 3, being two-faced. 4, actions speak louder than words. 5, abuse or ridicule. 6, vain discussion. 7, anger and emotions. 8, severe relation. 9, secret talks in small groups. And 10, fast talking and frequent interruption. All these principles, I repeat again, based on the Quran and Sunnah. As example, reconfirmation of the information or investigate rumor. Or you will believe if a weak people come to you with any news, ascertain the truth, lest you harm people unwitting and afterward become full of repentance for the what you have done. Source from Quran, 6th verse of chapter 49, Surah Al-Hujurat. All of that principles are intended to ensure that effective communication can be achieved. Otherwise, there will be oppression, fraud, and all kind of negative things in society. Next, thought for effective communication. A. Fruitful discussion. Communication as a process may often involve aspects such as conflict and compromise, but the approach applied to such communication event is significant important for its successful resolution. B. By applying a realistic attitude towards matters, negative stress may be avoided. Therefore, a balance between optimism and practicality should be better solved. C. By breaking down problem into manageable parts, brainstorming possible solution, and confronting one issue at a time, one may achieve better communication. D. Bring about more positive feelings toward oneself, and this through the release of endorphin or the so-called feel-good hormone, creating a state of harmony. E. An open-head discussion. In this manner, express one's feelings as it promotes better future understanding. F. Avoid feelings of envy towards others, as this would not promote one's success, rather set the focus on one's own personal goal for achievement. And G. Tranquility or recharging battery, so that the discussion taken do not follow emotion. Next, we will see corporate communication scenario in a Muslim society. Through corporate communication allow to manage new diversified, conflicting, as well as unpredictable wave of information and communication. Corporate communication form parts of public and corporate reputation, which is intangible asset of great value to business. In other words, the company image can be described through corporate communication, while corporate social responsibility or CSR also important agenda in corporate communication in area of reputation building, type of programs, participation of fund, and categories of beneficiaries must be reassessed, and methods of evaluating the effectiveness of CSR in terms of its contribution to the bottom line must be devised.
Thank you, Brother Aswad. We are at the last part of Group 1 presentation. Let's recap the main gist of our presentation today. The term communication simply refers to the vital transmission of ideas, The function of communication serves the means by which organized activities are unified. The purpose of communication in an enterprise is to effect changes, as well as influence actions towards the welfare of an enterprise. The message of the communication is channeled through a number of approaches called the process and flows. The foregoing description of the Islamic principles of organizational communication establishes the vast amount of guidance provided in the Quran and Sunnah with regards to this particular sphere of life. Islam condemns the use of communication on skills for manipulating and exploiting others. Islam not only guides the Muslims as to the manner in which to communicate, but also assists in guiding in terms of what should be communicated and why. These are our references. Thank you for listening.